The Premier League is back. What a crazy first match week it's already been in the 2025-2026 season. This season looks like it could be an all-timer. Let's break down the first match week right here, right now. In what promises to be one of the most exciting Premier League seasons in recent history, we began this season at Anfield. What more could you want to kick off a brand new season other than a match at the defending champions' home? It was such an emotional night. The Anfield atmosphere was impeccable. I mean, I could feel the emotion through the screen, and the tragic events that happened this summer were still close at heart for the entire league. And I mean, Anfield was just a special, special pace before kickoff. And just to be those players, I mean, I can't even imagine what the emotions were like going into this game. Liverpool kick off this season looking to retain their title, something that they haven't done since the 1980s. There's a lot of expectation around this club. I mean, they've spent big this summer. Yes, their net spend overall, when you consider a couple of big sales like Darwin Nunez and Luis Diaz, isn't as dramatic as a lot of rival fans are making it seem to be. But they've still spent significant money to revamp their fullback department, especially. I mean, they've brought in Milos Kerkez from Bournemouth, who, funny enough, played against his former employers in this first match. They've brought in the duo from Leverkusen in Jeremy Frimpong and Florian Wirtz. Huge expectations, along with a huge price tag for Florian Wirtz too. And Frimpong, of course, has to fill in big shoes with Trent Alexander-Arnold leaving this offseason. And of course, they have the big man up front, Hugo Ekitike. And I mean, with Bundesliga signings in the past, there's always been question marks. I mean, you know, you look at guys like Kai Havertz and Timo Werner, who were considered significantly underperforming what their expectations were once they came from the Bundesliga to the Premier League. Lots of question marks with these Bundesliga signings that Liverpool has made this season, but man, it took you all of 2 minutes to look at Hugo Ekitike and understand this guy is a baller. I mean, we saw flashes of it in the preseason. He linked up beautifully with Mohamed Salah for a goal in the preseason, and this guy just looks so comfortable. I mean, on the ball, he was dropping deep, spraying passes, linking up with his teammates, and eventually getting onto the score sheet. And this guy looks like he's going to be a problem. Hugo Ekitike looks like the real deal, and he's going to score lots and lots of goals. And I hope that he gets a chance to solidify that starting spot, especially if Liverpool does get Alexander Isak. Now, moving to the other two new recruits that started this match in the defensive side of things, Milos Kerkez playing against Bournemouth. Looked like Ande Iriola and Bournemouth really targeted him. I mean, obviously, they've worked closely with him in training before. They know what he's all about. And it looked like they were trying to exploit his weaknesses early. I mean, Semenyo was a handful for him from Bournemouth down that side, causing a few problems. But Kerkez was okay overall. It's Frimpong who really kind of seemed to come under a lot of physical pressure. And we all know Jeremy Frimpong isn't the biggest guy, right? But he was phenomenal under Xabi Alonso at Bayer Leverkusen. Flying wingback in a back three, very attacking minded, slightly, more to be desired from his defensive side of things. I don't think he was extremely poor defensively, but definitely a lot of work to be done, and it's going to come with time. I mean, it's his first game in the Premier League. He is of a smaller stature. I have no doubts that a player of his quality will figure it out, but definitely an adjustment period is needed. Moving forward towards Liverpool's midfield, you could kind of tell this is where they're missing that quote-unquote midfield destroyer or a true number six. I mean, they started with a double pivot of Szoboszlai and McAllister. McAllister looked great, dictating tempo, creating chances, linking up really well, kept the attacks flowing. Szoboszlai was okay. He had some hit-or-miss moments, snatched at a few chances, but definitely it'll be interesting to see if Liverpool does go with some slightly more defensively solid midfielders, especially if you consider that, both fullbacks, Kerkez and Frimpong, were substituted by Arne Slot in the second half. Does he trust them as much with a more attacking-minded midfield in front of them, or will he look to play a more defensive midfielder there to protect his fullbacks? That remains to be seen. Once you move to the attacking side of things, of course, all eyes were on one man only, and that is the German wonder kid Florian Wirtz. A lot of people seem to forget he suffered a pretty severe ACL injury while at Leverkusen, and, those injuries take time to get over. In this first match, you could see Florian Wirtz was not playing as freely as we've seen him play at Leverkusen. Now, again, it's an adjustment period potentially in a new league. He was dispossessed quite a few times, but I have no doubt in my mind that this guy has the quality to be an absolute superstar on any team, let alone a team with so many attacking options like Liverpool. I think he will have no problem linking up with his teammates and getting going once he gets to play a little more free-flowing and understand the way that Slot wants to play football moving forward. The man of the hour and my man of the match personally in this game was Hugo Ekitike. I mean, what a player this guy already is. I can't wait to see what this guy does in the Premier League. If his first match is anything to go off of, we are looking at the next big Premier League superstar. Linking up with Cody Gakpo to provide an assist, scoring a goal himself. Just this guy was everywhere. His situational awareness was amazing. The way he flows with the ball is amazing. Huge shout out to Hugo Ekitike. Now, things got a little interesting. The midfield again was being overrun a little bit for Liverpool, especially after Arne Slot made some changes. So he took off Kirkes and Frimpong. And it's funny because that's actually when the clean sheet did disappear for Liverpool. Wataru Endo came on. He played a little bit of right back. Slot, I will give him credit, noticed that he was struggling in this position and immediately put on Joe Gomez to take over at right back and moved Endo into a more defensive midfield position. For Bournemouth, this was always going to be a tough first match away from home at Anfield, given all the expectations around Liverpool, given the atmosphere pregame. This was always going to be a tall task for Irola and his men. I do love what he's done with that team, but there's no denying that they've lost some major pieces over the summer. I mean, 3 of their 4 starting defenders in Zabarni, Hoysen, and Kirk has left this summer. By the way, what great recruitment from Bournemouth being able to sell 3 of those players to teams like Real Madrid, PSG, and Liverpool. But it was always going to be a tall task for Bournemouth. Antoine Semenyo, the man for them. We knew he is going to be alongside Evan Nielsen, 2 of kind of the main characters in this team. Very unfortunate incident with a Liverpool fan for Antoine Semenyo suffering racist abuse. The game was paused momentarily. Shout out to him for bringing that to attention. There's no room for that in this day and age, especially ever, but especially in this day and age. And for him to have the mental strength to just carry on and perform the way he did by scoring 2 goals, one of which he picked up the ball outside his own 18-yard box, drove the entire length of the field, and placed the ball perfectly in the back of the net to draw Bournemouth level away at Liverpool. The unthinkable was on the cards until Arne Slot, again, one thing I give him credit for, his substitutions in this game, whether they were right or wrong, they changed the game in some way or another. And Federico Chiesa comes off the bench in the 88th minute, scores a phenomenal goal to take his chance. You could see just how much it meant to him scoring that goal. That's a player who hasn't had a lot of chances in this Liverpool team, and I believe he does want to stay here and make an impact. And maybe this is that platform for him to catapult from this game and maybe get some more chances in the squad. But great finish from Chiesa, gives them the lead. And then, of course, the inevitable Mohamed Salah strikes in the 94th minute. People who had him in the FPL, in their FPL teams, including myself, were feeling quite upset at his performance up until that point. But I mean, he put the ball in the back of the net and gave Liverpool a 4-2 win on match week 1. Overall, a great start to the season, and it left us excited for the rest of the weekend. The next match we move on to is Aston Villa versus Newcastle United at Villa Park. I woke up at 5:30 a.m. local time for this one because I'm in Canada, and I almost fell back asleep during this game because it was such a snooze fest. I was so disappointed. I mean, 0-0. Neither team really did much. Newcastle kind of grew into the game a little bit later after the red card from Ezri Konsa. I mean, can we talk about that push on Anthony Gordon? What was Konsa thinking? I know Gordon was through, but at that point, I mean, Gordon had never looked like really scoring in that match. But Konsa just did what he felt like he needed to do, I guess. For Villa, quite disappointed. I was expecting a lot more offensively from them. I mean, Morgan Rogers was bright on the ball a couple of times, but couldn't really get going in the game. Ollie Watkins had a difficult game where he couldn't really influence the game too much. I was really impressed by the goalie Bizot. I mean, he has played Champions League football for Brest last season in France. Replacing Emi Martinez is always going to be difficult. Funny enough, Emi Martinez was in the stands because he was suspended for this match from last season's final game against United where he got that red card. Is Emi Martinez going to stay? Is he going to leave? I mean, he made it pretty clear that he did potentially want to leave Villa, but no clubs came in for him, so he's still there. Is Bizot going to hold down that spot, or will Martinez be back to challenge for it? We'll see. Boubacar Kamara and Amadou Onana, what a midfield pair that is. Boubacar Kamara was everywhere. He was just tremendous, covered all ground, and just was everywhere. John McGinn had a quiet game, but again, it was just a very dull affair overall. For Newcastle, obviously the big question mark this season is Alexander Isak and his future. Is he going to represent the Magpies again this season, or will he be in a different shirt when the transfer window ends? The bottom line is he wasn't available for this game, and so they went with Anthony Gordon kind of playing as that false nine, if you will. Elanga on the right making his debut, and Harvey Barnes on the left. The two wingers, Barnes and Elanga, kind of had some moments where they were taking on defenders and trying to create something, but they never really got going. And that's the thing with Elanga. A lot of people have been saying, he was great in that Nottingham Forest team last year, but is that because the style of play was different? Nottingham Forest was looking to hit their opponents on the counterattack, and we all know Elanga has tremendous pace. But in this game where he had to create his own shots and create space for himself, it wasn't as easy for him to do as maybe he's used to. Newcastle's midfield Sandro Tonali ran the show. He was just tremendous in this game, and the defense was fine. They dealt with whatever minimal attacks that Aston Villa could string together. Not much for them to do. It feels so good to see Sunderland back on the big stage. They started their campaign off at home against West Ham United, and Sunderland is a team that I personally believe will be able to stay up this year. It will be a tough battle, obviously, for the three promoted teams to stay up, Burnley, Leeds, and Sunderland, but I firmly believe that Sunderland do have a really nice squad that they've put together. They have a balance of young players and experienced players. Of course, Granit Xhaka coming back to the Premier League as captain is great, and they have some other really nice recruitment. Habib Diarra from Strasbourg, a player that I watched quite a bit last year, is going to be a phenomenal signing for them as well. And I mean, the energy was infectious in the stadium. The pre-match festivities in the stadium were amazing. The tifo was great, and it just felt really good to see Sunderland back in the Premier League. They won this game quite handily. I mean, West Ham, Jared Bowen was really the only one doing anything for them. He looked good on the ball quite a bit. But other than that, they couldn't really grow into the game. Diouf looks really good as well for West Ham, but he didn't have a huge impact here. The nice thing for Sunderland is both of their strikers scored. I mean, we know Mayenda scored the first goal, but then Isidore comes off the bench and he scores as well. And so that puts them in an interesting situation because a lot of people were suggesting that Sunderland might not have the ability to get Premier League goals, but to have both of your strikers score in the first match week and get 3 points like they did is a great sign. And of course, they still have Mark Guiu on loan from Chelsea as the third striker if need be. So they're looking good. And of course, big Dan Ballard with a header there in the 73rd minute, just sending the fans into delirium. A great win for them. West Ham looked sluggish. West Ham looked, like they couldn't really get much going. And especially when they had Nicholas Fulkrug and Callum Wilson on at the end there. And it just felt very, very heavy from them. And I think West Ham definitely needs some help, especially in the midfield department, if they're going to be able to turn this season around and perform better than they did last year. Graham Potter got his new goalkeeper that he wanted in Mads Hermansen, but unfortunately for him, Sunderland was just too good on the day. We then move on to Tottenham Hotspur versus Burnley. Burnley, another newly promoted team this year. Unlike Sunderland, I think they will have a slightly tougher time fighting to stay up in the Premier League. And this game was just, a prime example of that. Burnley did look good. They had quite a few chances actually moving forward. But again, 0 big chances out of 14 shots taken. It's just not going to be able to be good enough if you're trying to survive in the Premier League. This game was just the Mohamed Kudus and Richarlison show. I mean, both of these guys were phenomenal. Mohamed Kudus looks like he can do it all. Physically strong, technically great, linking up with his teammates well, providing phenomenal crosses, and his link-up play with Richarlison was perfect in this game. Beautiful goal from Richarlison in the second half in the 60th minute, and then Brennan Johnson topped it off with a nicely taken finish. It was interesting to see Thomas Frank elect to not go with João Palhinha in this match, unlike in the Super Cup against PSG, and of course maybe that's because he expected Tottenham to have a lot more of the ball in this game, so he went with a more progressive midfield three of Lucas Bergvall, Archie Gray, and Pop Mat Sarr. Sarr often playing as a second 10 with Kudus behind Richarlison, and it worked. I mean, they were great. They were fluid. They're playing exciting football. Jed Spence looks great. And Mickey Van de Ven, what a player he is. This guy is everywhere. Tottenham really look like they're going to be an exciting team this season, and they can go on to do some decent things in the Premier League. Unfortunately for Burnley, a game to forget for them. I mean, a first game back in the Premier League away from home, thoroughly outperformed all across the field. The final match on Saturday was Wolverhampton Wanderers hosting Manchester City. Emotional tributes before the game again from the Wolverhampton supporters towards Diogo Jota and his brother. Beautiful scenes. It was great to see the whole league coming together to honor their lives and remember what a tragedy it was this summer. Once the match kicked off, though, actually even before the match kicked off, Pep Roulette, as it's become to be known, was in full effect. And what Pep Roulette is basically never knowing what starting 11 Pep Guardiola is going to roll out with. We were expecting possibly Ryan Cherki to make his debut, maybe Omar Marmoush to start, but instead he went with Oscar Bob and Jeremy Doku on either wing. And this was met with some skepticism online, but Tijani Reinders did make his full Premier League debut here, and I am telling you guys, this guy is a baller. Silky smooth, technical. I mean, he was phenomenal at Milan last year as well. He was often playing as a DM in Milan, but for those who watched him play, his best work was higher up the pitch, and that's exactly where he was deployed in this match by Pep Guardiola. And I mean, it was the Tijani Reinders show. Silky smooth dribbling for the first goal, just glides through the midfield with the ball, dinks a beautiful little chip over the top for Rico Lewis, who just plays it across goal for the easiest goal Haaland's going to score. 3 minutes after Haaland scored, Tijani Reinders got on the score sheet himself. Oscar Bob wins possession. Haaland, Reinders, and Bob stream forward. Tijani Reinders receives the ball and just places it perfectly in the corner for his first Premier League goal. I'm so excited to see him grow under Pep Guardiola even further than what he already showed us in the Serie A last year. A goal and an assist, but played a part in the first goal as well. Second half, Haaland scores, assisted by Reinders, and then Ryan Cherky comes off the bench and puts a stamp on this performance. I mean, I think Wolverhampton's going to struggle this year, unfortunately. I think losing Matheus Cunha is huge for them, unless they obviously replace him. I think Strand Larson will be the key for them. Again, it's always tough facing Manchester City any day of the week, but I just cannot speak highly enough about Tijani Reinders. Other notable performances in this game, I thought that Ryan Aït-Nouri had a solid game. Rico Lewis was great. Oscar Bob was absolutely phenomenal. I think he is a very, very nice player. James Trafford did well in the Man City goal. You kind of have to feel for him. He signs, from Burnley back to Manchester City, and now there's potential news that Donnarumma might be joining Manchester City, so Trafford may be demoted to the bench. I was impressed with the Wolves midfield of Joao Gomes and Andre. I think they were quite well rounded in their game, both defensively and moving forward, but there just wasn't much for Wolverhampton in this game. Munetsi had a few really nice chances. He actually scored an offside goal. He was bright, always active. But at the end of the day, Manchester City did walk away with all 3 points, and I am extremely excited to see what Tijani Reinders will do in this Premier League season. One downside to this match for Manchester City was Jeremy Doku. He is a player who I do enjoy watching, but I mean, it just, when you have guys like Omar Marmoush and Ryan Cherky in the team, I would like to see them feature a little bit more. It feels like Doku is a little bit flat with his take-ons and the chances that he can create. I mean, Oscar Bob on the right-hand side was phenomenal, and then things fell a little flat with Doku on the left. But again, it's just match week 1, but it will be interesting to see how Pep juggles his attacking options throughout the season. Sunday kicked off at Stamford Bridge, Chelsea hosting Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace, of course, coming into this, recently beating Liverpool in the Community Shield to win that after an FA Cup victory for them last season. Crystal Palace is flying high right now. The vibes are great around the squad. Of course, there is the big question mark about Eze potentially leaving and joining Tottenham, along with Guéhi potentially leaving and joining Liverpool. There were rumors that Eze might not start this match, but of course, come match day, there were no surprises. He was starting, and Oliver Glasner even joked in the post-game press conference saying, "Don't believe everything you read online." I think we can all safely assume that Eze will be leaving for Tottenham at some point in this transfer window. For the match itself, though, for Chelsea, it's been a short offseason, of course, winning the Club World Cup final. They just played 2 friendlies within the last week to head into this new season. They didn't have much of a preseason. You could tell that Chelsea had a few heavy legs. I mean, Enzo Fernandez being someone specifically who just looked way off the pace and just wasn't able to get going. Crystal Palace was very well structured, very compact, but also looking to get on the counter and push bodies forward. Big question marks for Chelsea with Levi Colwill tearing his ACL, unfortunately. Who would be in center back? They opted to go with the youngster Josh Achampong, who I think was absolutely phenomenal. Obviously, Maresca has said that he wants that central center back to be able to play the ball and break lines. I think Achampong did a very good job of progressively bringing the ball forward and trying to find those forward passes. Obviously, you cannot replace Levi Colwill very easily, but I think Achampong did as good as he could given the circumstances. Dealing with a physical striker like Mateta, I mean, Mateta was limited to just 1 shot in the match. I think Achampong was fine, if not very good. Chalaba was solid as well. Caicedo was great as usual. Cole Palmer, invisible in this match. And again, that's credit to Crystal Palace. I mean, they marked him out of the game. They were very solid defensively, and there was just no room for Palmer to influence the game, as there was no room for Joao Pedro to influence the game. Jamie Gittins looks a little raw, but I think he'll over time come good. Obviously, there are rumors that Alejandro Garnacho could be going to Chelsea. It'll be interesting to see if Maresca decides to start Garnacho over Gittins moving forward. Pedro Neto, as usual, industrious, good work on and off the ball, but just couldn't impact the game offensively. Eze was disallowed a goal because of a rule where Mateta pushed Guéhi pushed Caicedo within a meter of the wall. Now, this was one of the more controversial decisions of the weekend, and I've personally never seen that given as a foul. However, there was a lot of discussion online about this being a rule, and so, I mean, I felt like it was a little harsh on Crystal Palace, but ultimately that was the referee's decision according to the rule book. Other than that, Eze looked really good, very nice and fluid on the ball, looked like he had a point to prove, potentially in his final game for Crystal Palace. And of course, Adam Wharton, phenomenal in Crystal Palace's midfield, absolute gem of a player, constantly dictating the tempo and creating attacking chances. For Chelsea, Estevao came off the bench and was crisp physically. People say he's a small guy and he might not be ready for the Premier League's physicality, but don't forget this guy played in Brazil from a very young age in the top flight. It's not as physical as the Premier League by any means, but Brazil and South Americans, their football can get physical too. And so I think Estevao will be phenomenal once he gets his feet wet a little bit more and gets more minutes. Liam Delap had a chance at one point to get Chelsea that goal, as well as Andre Santos, but just wasn't to be. 0-0, disappointing for Chelsea. I know a lot of Chelsea fans feel like, Palace is a good team, which they are. Disappointing result for Chelsea, given everything, given the heightened expectations around the team this year. But I think, it's match week 1. As they get their fitness back and players get more in the groove, I think they'll be fine. Crystal Palace, on the other hand, I feel like they would be disappointed to not have gotten all 3 points, and I think they played a tremendous match from start to finish. The City Ground then played host to Nottingham Forest versus Brentford. I mean, Brentford, everyone's hitting the panic button. They've lost Christian Norgard. They've lost Thomas Frank, who's been at the club for I don't even know how many years. They potentially might lose Wissa. They've lost Brian Mbemo. Everyone says it's doom and gloom for Brentford. In this game, I mean, Nottingham Forest was really good. Chris Wood, phenomenal. His run for the second goal, I suggest you guys go back and watch it. I mean, the fact that he turns and starts running in behind before the ball's even recovered by Forest just shows the trust that he has in his teammates to get the job done. It was just a great performance from Forest overall. Morgan Gibbs-White with a nice assist for Dan Ndoye, the new signing, obviously, at Forest, and just a nice performance from Nottingham Forest. I had them down to actually keep a clean sheet, but of course we had the penalty given away by Sangare at the end there. And then the big one to finish off the matches on the weekend was, of course, at Old Trafford, Manchester United versus Arsenal. And we were all anticipating the debut of both strikers on either side of this huge matchup. Victor Gyökeres for Arsenal, who did start the game, and Benjamin Šeško, who ended up coming off the bench for Manchester United. This one was an interesting one. Watching the match, it was clear to see Manchester United looked really good, much better than they did throughout last season. Arsenal ended up getting their goal through the corner, through the set piece. We all know what the discourse is online. I mean, everyone is talking about how Arsenal only scores goals from corners, this, that, the other. The bottom line is they got their goal. They held on to their lead. In this game, I think Manchester United looked really good for the majority of the game. I mean, the system was really coming together for them. I think in this game, a lot of people online are criticizing Arsenal for not creating much, and I think that's a fair criticism. In open play, they didn't really create much. Again, it's that familiar story with Arsenal of winning a set piece and then scoring from that. A lot of talk online about Saliba impeding Bayindir for that goal. I do think that Bayindir could have been a little bit stronger in dealing with the cross. I don't necessarily think that was a foul by Saliba, although I understand how it can be annoying when you come up against that kind of play in the box, crowding the goalie, but I don't think that was a foul. I think United are unlucky not to score in this game. I mean, Cunha looked really good moving forward. Mbeumo was a little bit subdued, but he had his flashes where he was able to show what he can potentially do. Bruno Fernandes was all right in the midfield. I think Casemiro was phenomenal the way he was dictating play. Patrick Dorgu had a chance where he actually hit the post, but he was quite bright throughout the game moving forward as well. The defense for United was phenomenal. I think De Ligt was great. Luke Shaw looked back to his best self. Lenny Yoro was quite impressive as well. Substitutions, of course, then brought on Benjamin Šeško and Amad Diallo. I mean, you could just hear from the ovation that Šeško got that the United fans were just craving that striker presence to come on, and hopefully Šeško will be that guy for United fans. In this game, unfortunately, he just had a couple of chances, but wasn't able to really impact the game. Amad Diallo looked really bright coming off the bench, taking on his man as we're used to, and just creating chances, but couldn't get the ball in the back of the net. Ugarte struggled off the bench. I definitely think that once Casemiro came off, it was a little bit more open in the midfield for United, and a few misplays from Ugarte led to a couple of chances from Arsenal as well. On the Arsenal side of things, Raya made a couple of phenomenal saves, especially on that header from Mbeumo. But the big story from this game was the struggles of Victor Gyökeres, and a lot of people online are claiming this is one of the worst debuts in Premier League history. It wasn't pretty. Like, there's no denying that this was not a pretty game for him. He had a hard time really getting involved, getting into the game. You could see his physicality. He was kind of brushing defenders off here and there, but he just couldn't get into the positions that he wanted to. He may struggle a little bit here and there to get off the ground, but once he does, I think, he's still a useful presence for Arsenal up front. I think, you could hear from the reception from Arsenal fans too. They haven't given up on Kai Havertz. I think he is a great presence for them up front. But it'll be interesting to see how Gyökeres kind of deals with this start to life in the Premier League. It's only one game. Over time, he will come good, I think, but this definitely was a difficult game for him. Saka, Martinelli, could not influence the game at all. It was really difficult for them to grow into the game. Odegaard was phenomenal, as he usually is. Zubamendi, a bit of a quiet game. Declan Rice, the same, a bit of a quiet game. I mean, let's be honest. I think Manchester United outplayed Arsenal in this match. I think Arsenal will be quite happy to get 3 points away at Old Trafford to start off their season. And I think Manchester United will be disappointed that they couldn't at least score a goal and get something out of this game. After the match, too, it was really nice to see Ruben Amorim defending Altay Bayindir, the goalkeeper, who was brought under questioning by some journalists about why he started over Tom Heaton. And it was nice to see that passion from Ruben Amorim protecting his players and taking that ownership of his decision. And you can start to see a little bit more of that fight in United and that identity that they've been missing for the last few seasons. And then the final match for the first week of the Premier League season, Leeds United back in the Premier League hosting Everton. Everton is a team that I did have decent expectations for as a dark horse team this year. I think they've done some really nice recruitment. I think with David Moyes at the helm, they'll be able to have a better season, especially with that excitement of a new ground and that renewed energy in their camp. But this game was all Leeds United to start the game. I mean, Daniel Farke had his guys playing phenomenal football in the first half. They were all over Everton, just couldn't find a goal. And, Tanaka looked really good. Nanto had a few chances here and there. Dan James was on the ball quite a bit, but wasn't really impactful with it. I mean, the moment in this game, without a doubt, is the penalty call. And James Tarkowski has his hand tucked to his side, but I guess is moving into the path of the ball. And so it strikes the shoulder that's moving into the ball. You can look at it both ways. I can see it being given as a penalty. I can see it as not being given. I think it's extremely harsh. I personally think it's extremely harsh on Everton to give that, especially because the shot deflects once, if not twice, before hitting him. But I understand why the referee made that decision as he's moving into the path of the ball. But it was definitely a difficult call. I think the reason too that VAR didn't overturn it is because there wasn't enough to overrule the on-field decision, which was penalty. I don't know if the referee calls no penalty on the field. I don't think that VAR does suggest a penalty for that. Tarkowski seemed shocked by the call, and I mean, I do think it was a pretty tough call to make. But once the penalty was given, I mean, Lucas Nemecha scores the first goal for Leeds United in the Premier League this season. It's going to be an interesting one for Leeds. I mean, I think they have a chance to stay up if they can get goals in games like this from open play, which they didn't do today, obviously. But Everton will be disappointed with this match result for sure. I think that they were going into this game expecting to start, at least with a point, if not 3. They just couldn't really get going. Beto was having a difficult time getting into the game. Dewsbury Hall was all right. Iliman and Ndiaye was all right. But other than that, I mean, Charlie Alcaraz was pretty quiet for most of the game as well. It was interesting to see that their new signing, Tierno Berry, came on so late in the 86th minute. I wonder if that's a fitness thing or whatnot, but it definitely was a presence. But it definitely was more of a presence to aim for in the box with 2 big strikers on in him and Beto towards the end of the game. But they just couldn't find a way to get it done. And Daniel Farke's men start the Premier League season with 3 points, and David Moyes was visibly frustrated after the match. So there you have it then. That is a rundown of all the craziness that happened in the first week. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you made it this far, please let me know down below what your favorite moment from the first match week is. Also, let me know who you think performed the best in match week 1 and who you think struggled in match week 1. For me, my best performer of the week is Hugo Ekitike. Phenomenal. Can't wait to see what he does. And for me, the player that struggled the most this week is Victor Gyökeres, given all the hype around him and given the expectations. But again, I do think he will come good. All right. Thank you for making it to the end of this video, and I will see you guys next time.